You know, people, especially people who've never been close to one, throw around the term corporation and corporate in I think sometimes uninformed ways. A corporation is a community. A lot of them speak of themselves as a family. Lilly often, in many parts of Lilly they did. What would you say are the characteristics of the community or the family of Lilly, the culture of the place? Obviously it's evolved over time, but say a little bit, because I always felt it was a very, very special place to work because in large part of the culture that grew up there.
Yeah, I think that's right. Of course, Lilly's an old company. We're celebrating our 141st anniversary this May. That's unique by itself. I think there's only a handful of American companies with the same name that have been around that long. And I think there's reasons for that. One of the strongest ones is the culture, what it's like to work in the company. It's a company that deeply rewards expertise and technical advancement, which is usually a good fit for Purdue grads. It's a company also, though, that has a very humanistic side to it. People genuinely like to work with each other at the company. Having worked a bit on the East Coast, and no offense to our friends out there, but there's something different about working in our company. People actually spend a little more time caring about what's happening beyond the front door. We're neighbors and friends, many of us. And at the same time, I think it's also a very mission-driven enterprise. There aren't too many people, when you get to sort of the root of why are you here, who don't say, because I'm trying to do something to advance medicines for people who are sick. And because we all share that feeling, and whatever our expertise or talent is to advance that cause, I think it really gives us a bond, kind of a tribal component that's very strong. There are parts of the culture we want to adapt and change too. I think not unlike some of the talks I've heard you give, Mitch, we need to be more externally facing and global in our orientation. We need to be more collaborative. I was just at a collaboration meeting with Purdue, actually, directing a new collaboration we have here. And we just need to be faster. The world is speeding up and we're a big company, but we're not the biggest, so scale can't be our advantage. We have to be faster than the people bigger than us.
Well, there's a sense, I can just testify personally, I'm sure every business has a sense of mission of some kind, but as you put it, I used to say to folks, these aren't ball bearings we're making here. I understand how important ball bearings are, but
right.
but the products that literally save lives, extend lives, improve the quality of life. If you can't be motivated by that, then you got to look in the mirror. What's coming? This is one of the definitive research-based, innovation-based businesses. You live or die is probably not too strong by the innovation that you produce or that you somehow acquire. What's coming from Lilly, and what are you excited about for the patients of today and tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say overall in biopharma industry, if you're considering that for a career, there's never been a better time for developing products in the biopharmaceutical industry than right now. I think some of that is because the Human Genome Projects, which launched 20 years ago or so, which have given us tremendous insight into the biology. Some of the way that the business works now can just make medicines for things that were previously intractable and not druggable targets. I think that's quite exciting. And just our sophistication in segmenting population and understanding disease allows us to bring therapies that might be for smaller groups but have much greater impact. And all those things I think are unlocking enormous innovation in the sector. For Lilly, we're focusing on 5 key areas which amongst the drivers of disability and mortality are amongst the top 10. Diabetes has been a long-standing business for, in many ways, our oldest business, which arose from a collaboration, which is a common theme, with the University of Toronto in 1922. And we're still making insulin, but we also make many other products for diabetes patients. We're one of the world leaders in that space, and I think a very exciting innovation coming forward to help people, particularly with type 2 diabetes, lose weight, stay out of the hospital for cardiovascular risk, and live an otherwise normal life. Cancer, another leading area for us. And here, there's just an explosion of technology and opportunity. And we're not to a point where we're talking about curing cancer, but we are turning cancer into a chronic disease, which previously was unthought of. So people can survive the multiple bouts of metastases and tumor reappearance and live otherwise normal lives, live a pretty long time with cancer. And that's, I think, an enormous advance in our sector, and Lilly's been a part of that, will continue to be. We've launched a new business recently in immunology. So this is diseases where your body's misrecognizing yourself as a foreign entity and attacking autoimmune conditions like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis. It's a whole family of disease that is growing. No one knows why growing, by the way, but is afflicting people for a lifetime of disability. And there's also great breakthroughs there. And then finally, neuroscience is a hallmark of our business. We're famous for Prozac and the neuropsychiatry revolution of medications, which have helped millions of people, but now focused on neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, which is probably the last big disease that affects really a lot of people, hundreds of millions of people globally, that there is nothing. And we're a leader in that space. There's still nothing today, but we're optimistic about the midterm. And then also we're working on pain medications. This is very important because of the opioid epidemic, which we read about every day, which is really a misuse of a very old way to treat pain. Opioids don't treat pain particularly well anyway. And what we'd like to do is create new medicines that make it possible for doctors never to use opioids. And I think Lilly can be a big part of solving a public health crisis.
Yeah.
The second is actually about drug safety, and one of the most solemn responsibilities we have is to make sure that the medicines we produce and put into the world are safe as per the label. And you have two risks there. One is that we don't produce them with enough quality, or people misuse them according to their label, and then people get hurt. We've had in our history withdrawals for that reason, which is both ethically difficult but also financially not a good proposition. But then sometimes we're just learning because you don't know everything, back to the FDA, upon approval. You learn as you develop a drug, and we have to make adjustments. Will we see those problems or those safety issues early enough to warn people and redirect drugs use? I think that's a kind of crisis for any drug company.
You just reminded me of an episode, and let me just bear witness to what you said about the Lilly culture a little earlier. During my time there, it was reported one morning we get one of those emails, and that it appeared that the liquid form of our leading antibiotic, that a child there may have been something in the vial, an object that shouldn't be there, a piece of plastic or something.
Right.
And the company, and Randy Tobias was chairman at the time, we had no evidence of this, couldn't find any reason it would be true. Mm-hmm. But in the interest of maximum safety for patients, we pulled every bit of it from the market. Cost the company something like $50 million. It turned out not to be true. It was completely unnecessary. Yeah. But the company didn't hesitate. And I think those of us who were there at the time and later on felt we'd have made the same decision under any other circumstances. But that's the kind of company that you lead, and
that's right. And
people here should know that.
Yeah, no, I remember that situation actually. And there's been others where that's happened. Yeah. And sometimes it is true. Mm-hmm. And then we have to figure out how that happened and make sure it never happens again.
Yeah. So one more question, then we'll open it up. But this is another one somebody's going to ask you if I don't. What's Lilly looking for in associates and new colleagues at the company? Obviously, you need people of various descriptions, but are there common traits and or skills, hard or soft, that you're especially interested in?
I think so. You know, Mark Ferraris here runs our talent development group, so he can help with this. But when we look back at who does well in our company, I think there's two concepts that really pop out. Of course, you need to be smart, and you need to know your field and be proficient. That's a basic. But I think the two words we use are grit and gratitude. And I think another word for that is just determination and humility. Mm-hmm. It's why Purdue people do well, Lilly. And we've got 1,600 Purdue grads in our company. It's the most by far of any other school in the U.S. And so, determination, it's not easy to graduate from the school. I know. Yeah. some of the most challenging intellectual endeavors I ever undertook were as an undergrad here. It's not always, in a corporation, it's not always sexy and exciting. Sometimes you got to put your head down and just get things done. And I remember as a freshman, I lived in McCutcheon Hall, and I had a 7 a.m. physics class, Physics 152, in the physics building. Maybe they still teach that class here. And I had to walk across campus in late November to get to a class that was absolutely difficult and hard. That's where it starts. Do you have long-term goals? Are you willing to work hard and sacrifice to get there? That's a big part of our business, and people who have that ethic do well. Yep. And then the humility, which is about intellectual humility, that often we are convinced that a certain strategy to affect a disease has got to be right until it isn't. And then we have to have the humility to go back and figure out why. Or just in terms of a business decision, sometimes you're wrong. But that's how we get a learning organization and get a culture where people always want to do better.